Hi, I'm Jim. We're here at Chi Rivers Recovery Cafe in Kelso, Washington. We are a center for people to come in off the street and get help and learn recovery skills for addiction, mental health, you name it. Anybody with a problem, doesn't have to be mental health, doesn't have to be homelessness, any kind of problem that you're having, you're welcome to come in and hang out and talk to people and work on yourself. We are going to today, I'm teaching a course in proper eating for mental health and just proper eating in general. So a little disclaimer about me. First of all, I'm gonna put my glasses on for a bit here. Psychology 101, Chapter 1, Paragraph 1 in every basic book should say something like, every disease known to man, even down to the common cold, causes some level of dementia, confusion, trepidation, you name it, in the human mind. Before you can tag mental illness or just about anything else, you have to rule out the physical. It's so often left to the sick and confused to figure out what's going on within themselves when they can't even figure themselves out. So I'm not a professional chef. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not anyone of any professional stature. I've had to research for myself what is going on within my own system and figure out what's going to work for me. So that's kind of where I'm at and where I've come from. It's taken me almost 10 years to get to this point to where I understand enough about food to be able to eat properly. Most of my life I've suffered from intermittent constipation, diarrhea. You know, you never know what you're getting depending on what you're eating, and it's just been a nightmare. And it took me about 2.5 months to get from some kind of just general going out and eating whatever I felt like eating to the point where I actually passed a normal stool, nicely firmed, and it's like the first time it happened after 2.5 months, I was ready to give up. And I just said, did that come out of me? It's like, you know, so it does work if you want to have the diligence to look into it and make sure it works for you.
See, recovery is discovery.
That's right. Recovery is discovery. Thank you, John. And we have in here the studio today, we have 3 people who are going to help work with me. I want to keep this a little bit on the light side to where we've got just general talk as I'm going through things, because it's not about mix A with mix B and you get mix C. So one other thing I want to bring up is addiction, which is the control of unknown social pain by the addict. People seem to think that acting out, self-harm, drugs, that's not addiction. Addiction is the control of unknown social pain. The things that you see an addict doing and acting out and all the rest of that stuff, that's a symptom of addiction. That's how you know that you have an addict. But addiction is the control of unknown social pain. And if you don't know where that social pain is coming from, then you're going to turn to anything that you can get to control that pain. And that's addiction. Let's see, what did I leave out here? I guess the opinions and stuff, like I said, are mostly mine from research. I'm not going to sit here and try and prove my points on anything. I just put it out there. This is what's working for me. This is what I've figured out. And if science and medicine wants to counter it, that's fine with me. I welcome the corrections or additions to or anything else, because I'm not an expert. I'm just a sick person trying to help myself. That's all I am. So that's about it for the disclaimer. So the first thing today is I'm going to be prepping meats. Now, the meat, I'm going to be making a soup. We're going to be doing the soup tomorrow, but today I'm going to be cooking meats. And the reason I want to cook the meat is to get rid of most of the fats in it. Now, I have come to the conclusion that the fats are one of my biggest issues. My diet basically is lactose-free, gluten-free, and fat-free. That's basically my diet, and it's a very hard one to pull off in this world today. But the fats on most of your meats are where I feel the biggest problem that I have is.
That store toxins.
Yeah, as on the way I see it is that when you have fat on an animal or on yourself, and I looked at myself and, you know, when I was first put into a psychiatric hospital back in, well, my first major hospitalization in a state facility where I was there for 6 months, I gained 60 pounds in 3 months. So, you know, and it just sat right there for 30 years. And I was walking every day. I was walking over 5 miles a day because I had the time, I could do it, and I did. And it never lost an ounce. So as fats, the way I see it is that when we take toxins into our body has to get rid of those toxins. And it does it in any number of ways. You can pass it through sweat, you can pass it through your feces, you can get it out of your system will get it out of it one way or another. And if it can't get it out, or it can't get it out fast enough, the way I see it is your body will encapsulate it in a fat and it will store it on your body. And whether or not you can get rid of that fat that's encapsulating a toxin, I don't know. It just takes forever. I mean, I'm basically the same weight now as I was when I got out of the state hospital in 1985. It's just that it's no longer like this, it's now distributed. And so that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of how I started realizing is why does all these medications make us sick? Or gain weight, I should say, not sick. It's because I think we're taking them in too fast and our body can't process it. And until it can figure out how to metabolize it and process it and get rid of it, the excess medication, it will store it as a toxin in fat. That's my thoughts on it. All right, so let's get down into what we're doing here. I'm going to be cooking the meats, chicken, in an Instapot. So the one thing that I like to do with all my vegetables and stuff is wash them in salt water first. And with the meats, nice glove. Okay.
And not just table salt, sea salt.
Well, yeah, I use sea salt because I can get it in bulk and it's
Better for you.
better for you, it's cheaper. Salt has always been an antibacterial preservative. It helps, you know, do all those things. So I wash everything in sea salt, and I'd rather wash it in that than some chemical that, you know, says that, well, you wash your vegetable in this chemical and it'll clean them. It's like, okay, well, whatever. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna fill this up with water. I'm gonna cut these open and drop them in.
Give them a salt bath.
And give them a salt bath. Sea salt. I shake it up because sometimes cakes in. So I give it a pretty healthy amount of salt, and all this is going to get washed off. This is a very sharp knife. Thank you.
Using cold water right now? From that?
I'm using cold water, yes. There's no need to use hot water for this. Your hot water is will come from the cooking and it'll sterilize everything. I'm not, worried about the bacteria or anything. So right now I'm just gonna throw these in here and then I will trim any fat off them in a bit here. So I'm just gonna get them in here.
What cut of meat are we using right there? It looks
This
like
here
tenderloins.
looks like, oh, there it is, breast tenders. That's what it says. So there's one, and this one is thighs, chicken thighs.
Now, I see that has fat on it.
This has skin on it, and I will be taking as much of this off as I can.
Will it have bones in it too, do you think?
I don't know, I'm not worried about the bones. Yes, it does have bones in it, but I'm not worried about the bones. Okay, so let's get this over here.
How long do we let that soak for?
Right now, I'm not worried about how long it's going to soak because it's going to take me some while. See, I'm just going to get rid of those fats here.
Anything
I-
that's water soluble,
I don't usually clean this with gloves on.
there's not a lot of that.
They're slippery. And my Washington State Food Service card is on the bulletin board out in the other room there, along with about half a dozen others. I guess I'm not going to worry too much about these breast tenderloins because they're pretty clean.
Question for you.
Sure.
Do you use only organic meat?
No, I don't worry too much about organic and meats and stuff. And here's the thing, I watched a special on organic, what the word organic means. And honestly, the word organic means one thing. If you put something in front of it, it means something else. If you put something in back of it, it means something else. If you put combinations. So right now, when I watched that news feed, there was 6 or 7 different connotations for what organic meant, depending on whether it was used alone, used with different words, and those were defined by law. So it's like, what do you know? How do you figure all that out? I don't know. So I don't worry too much about organic. I look at the ingredients. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of the water. You know, all this stuff, pesticides and fertilizers and all of that stuff is, not only is it applied to crops and what have you, but it's also in the soil and in the air. You know, it's just all over the place. So, no, wrong one.
However, I must say that when I've eaten organic fruits or vegetables that have much more better flavor than
Well, I'm sure that's true as well. And I've found the same thing. And I tend to go for flavor over everything else. If you notice what the broth that I'm using is Pacific Foods organic vegetable broth, low sodium. And I picked this over store brands because of the flavor. Yeah, it's more expensive, but you know, the flavor to me is everything, especially since I'm on such a restricted diet. It's like I'm going to go for flavor every time. I guess so that's kind of where I'm at with the food. It's like I'm so restricted that I'm going for flavor. So, all right, so that's gonna soak for a little bit and then I'm gonna rinse it off real good and get it in the Instapot. And I cook it down to the point where it's a fork pull state. So when it comes out of the Instapot, it's going to be a fork pull. And I'll let it cool, I'll pull it out of the pot, I'll let it cool, and then I'll pull it apart. The broth I use, what I'll do is I will put it in the fridge overnight, and anything in the morning, the coagulated fat on top, I will skim off and I will use the broth. There's nothing wrong with the broth as far as I'm concerned. It's the fat that I want to get rid of. So let's see, and also, as long as we're talking about fats, we have oils. I've also found that there's a lot of oils that I cannot tolerate. Palm oil is a big one, which means that just about everything that says vegetable oil, I can't tolerate, because vegetable oil is probably at least 50 or 60% palm oil. Coconut, I'm on the fence for. I haven't done enough experimentation with it to know whether it's an issue or not. I don't think it's an issue, but I'm not sure. But other oils that I do have problems with, sunflower oil, safflower oil, and there's one that's called high oleic oil of some sort. I don't know, but that's a real bad one. I mean, if I eat chips that are cooked in high oleic oil, I got issues. Weird as it sounds, pure corn oil, you know, a lot of people have allergies to corn. For some reason, it doesn't bother me. So, you know, but everybody's system is different. So you've got to find what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I stick almost exclusively to EVOO. I'm not brand specific, but I just stick to EVOO for the most part. And that's about it as far as the oils and fats.
Quick question.
Sure.
In this day and age of genetically modified foods, have you had any experience with GMOs?
I don't go out of my way to stay away from them or buy them. I'm not sure what their effect may be one way or another. As far as I'm concerned, you know, we've genetically modified just about every single crop through selective breeding and everything else. I mean, the Mayans and Aztecs took corn way centuries ago and changed it from a plant that would self-propagate itself into, now you cannot grow corn unless man comes in and separates the kernels and puts them back in the ground. Corn will not self-propagate anymore because it's completely dependent on a person to separate the corn from the husk and put it back in the ground. So if we stopped doing that, corn would just die out. So that's a GMO, okay? But it was done centuries ago through natural selection, you know, by man saying, all right, well, this is the biggest one, we're gonna use this for our seed. And we do that with everything, wheat, barley, you name it. All right, so Instapot, here we come. So I'm just gonna layer this in here. There's not very much meat in here. I usually cook in my Instapot when I'm doing this. I'll cook up about that much meat. This is down about a quarter of the pot. All right, so I put a significant amount of water in this as well. In fact, I'll bring it right up to the top of the chicken. Go at 80 and see how she works.
Is that actually a pressure cooker?
Yes, it is. It's a modern day pressure cooker. So what it's doing now, it just turned on and it will bring itself up to temperature. And once it's on temperature, the clock will start ticking, because then it's built up its steam inside the pressure cooker, and then it will cook for 80 minutes. All right, so I need to wash this stuff real quick. Actually, I'm just gonna set this one aside. I will wash my knife.
Cross-contamination happens when we don't clear off the cutting table and then do something else and pick up the juice from what we used before.
Right.
They'll teach you all that if you get a food handler's card.
Yep. And let me see here. I think we got some washcloths in here. This will work. handy wipe. So I'm going to use a different cutting board. They've got that plastic one they use for meat, so we'll get that one cleaned and sterilized later. And then the vegetable boards are over here. I'll grab one in a second. So I don't do a lot of cooking here. Most of that is handled by one of our other people. His name is Jeff, and he does most of the cooking here. I honestly don't like cooking foods that I can't eat, and it's like 90% of everything that's cooked here I can't eat, unfortunately. Just because I've restricted myself, and it's 10 years of diligence, and I don't feel like breaking it at this point because it's working. And that's kind of what it is. It's like diligence, because that's all there is to it. All right, so I'll put this back over here. Get a new pair of gloves.
So while you're doing that, I just want to mention that you mentioned food for mental health. And
Yes.
I know a few brain foods. Fish helps with omega-3.
Fish is excellent.
Oddly enough, not the sugar, but chocolate is good for your brain
The reason I don't
and your heart.
The reason I don't eat a lot of chocolate is because it's milk chocolate is what you get mostly. I'll eat
You
a
want dark chocolate.
I'll eat a 70% cacao when I feel like it. It's not very often. That's about it.
I've even eaten baker's chocolate, which
Yeah,
has no sugar in it.
Yeah, that I've tried that. I can't
good
deal
for
with it. So, all right. So here we go.
It's funny how chocolate without sugar is bitter.
Yeah.
But if you study food, often things that are bitter are good for you. Tends to be kind of like medicine or toddler boy.
All right. So let's see. Let's get in. We have the veggie board. So I'm cutting up all the vegetables today because that just makes it easier tomorrow. You know, on these cooking shows where they show everybody putting in this and that and that and this, there's a lot to be said for that, because it's honestly, I cannot, you'll see tomorrow that there's no way I could cut things up and cook what I cook in the way I cook it if I had to sit there and cut it up while I'm adding it in. It just does not work that way. And having everything prepped ahead of time is significant in just about anything you cook. All right, so first thing I'm gonna cut, onions work. So I don't know if there's any proper way of cutting up vegetables. Like I said, I'm not a professional chef. I just do what I do. And so I'm taking the butts off.
Probably even tried for cutting all those onions.
Well, the Walla Wallas aren't that bad. If it was a yellow onion, yes, it would. And I'll tell you, when I get to the garlic, yeah, there will be issues. So garlic's next. I love garlic, and first thing I'm going to do is, this is garlic that I grew myself. Okay, so to this point, what I've done so far is we have our meats prepped, defatted, and in the Instapot, and they are cooking. They've got like 40 minutes left to go. Let's see, I've cut up onions, I've cut up garlic, I've cut up cabbage, and I'm getting ready to cut up mushrooms and cut up carrots, and we've talked a whole lot about a whole bunch of different things like gluten and lactose intolerance, and I was in the middle of talking about vitamins and megadosing and the proper way to take vitamins, which is 1/2 to 1/3 of the RDA level over the course of 2 or 3 times a day. And quite honestly, you can't buy a 1/2 dose of any vitamin. I've looked in all the different stores and even online. So at this point, you know, I just do the best I can with vitamins. Now, let's see, where am I at now? Oh yes, and part of vitamins is juicing. So when we juice, what are you doing? You're taking all the essential ingredients out of a vegetable or a fruit and forgetting about the fiber. So what you're doing is you're overdosing yourself on vitamins, minerals, and whatever is in the fruits and vegetables. So as healthy as it sounds, you're overdosing yourself with stuff that's some of the hardest things to try and figure out in the human body is when you're getting too much of a vitamin or a mineral or something like that. There are some of the hardest things to diagnose. I don't really want to go through that. I've tried juicing, and I'll tell you, there are some of the juices that I put together that I almost had to choke down because they were so rich. I couldn't deal with it. So I stay away from juicing, but I'm going to tell you right now, I feel that there is a point and a time and a place for juicing. And that is for people who are going into surgery. One of the things that is the worst going for you is anesthesia. That stuff takes every ounce of everything right out of you. However, if you understand what you're going in for surgical-wise, whether it's cancer or whatever the case may be, and the same thing holds for chemotherapy, and you can have like 3 or 4 days of juicing ahead of time to prep your body so that when you hit with the anesthesia and all the chemical crap that they do with chemotherapy and radiation and all the rest of that, that you come out a step ahead. And then after it, you also hit with a different kind of juice to where you're now replenishing the stuff that's been stripped out of you by chemotherapy and the anesthesia. Okay, so that's going to take an understanding of the person's body, of what the chemotherapy does, of what the anesthesia does, and all this stuff that strips stuff out of your body so that you can prepare for it and come out of it. And recovery should, in my opinion, be significantly quicker and a whole lot easier to handle. And I can see the same thing for people who go in for dialysis. It's like I've heard horror stories about people who go in for dialysis and they come out of there and they're so drained they can barely get to their car. And they don't barely give them anything, maybe a glass of orange juice or something. It's like, I don't know. Okay, so the meat is ready. I've unplugged it and we're going to vent the Instapot right now. This is kind of fun. So we're just going to go nice and slow and let her cook off real easy. Debone it. Take out any parts that I don't want, like veins and stuff like that. So, and as you can see, it's it's fork tender pulled already. And what I'll be doing is I'll take this apart, and there's probably not a whole lot here to worry about packaging up. I'm probably going to use this whole thing in the soup. But when I cook it at home, I'll cook a significant amount of chicken, a lot more than this, and then I will take and I will package up the leftover chicken. And I'll show you quick, I'll do one package to show you how I do it. And then I'll take, I do small packages, and then I take those small packages and I take them all and I put them into a larger Ziploc and I freeze them. And then if I want like chicken for a stir fry, which I do a lot of, I can just take a package out and use a package for a stir fry. If I want to have chicken salad sandwiches, I'll take a package out, and they thaw in the microwave very, very nicely. And after that, okay, so chicken's out. We'll just give her about 5 or 10 minutes to cool, and we'll take it from there. So kill it.